Hi, this is ESPN's Dave Lamont, and you're listening to the Sports Objective Podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Welcome into the Sports Objective. We appreciate everyone tuning in here on a Thursday afternoon as we're going to be talking East Carolina Pirate baseball with a guy who just exhausted his eligibility in the purple and gold. But right now, I'd like to welcome into the show a former East Carolina catcher, and it sounds weird using that word former in front of his name, but former East Carolina catcher Ben Newton. We appreciate your time this afternoon, Ben.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that word former, but I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to it.
No doubt. Really appreciate the time, and like you said, I know it. Here just over a week out since we had unfortunately lost that Game 3 in the Super Regional against the University of Texas. But tremendous Pirate career, and I know you really enjoyed your experience in the purple and gold. But before we dive into that, just tell Pirate Nation a little about you, because I know you're from Colorado. You were born there, and you're in Loveland, Colorado, which for those that aren't familiar, about an hour north of Denver and an hour south of Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah, so just like what you said, grew up in Loveland, Colorado. Colorado's not a big baseball hotbed, obviously. So I played every sport growing up. Probably my favorite sport growing up was hockey. I played hockey up until high school, and then I just kind of narrowed it down into basketball and baseball. And then entering my senior year, that's when I finally made the decision, like, I want to go play college baseball. And I still played basketball and all through high school. And then not a lot of people know this, but out of high school, I actually went to a small school in Kansas. It was a Division II school named Fort Hays. And then I went there for a year and redshirted. After that, I transferred to a junior college in Colorado, really small junior college. It was called Northeastern Junior College. It's in Sterling, Colorado, which is basically Nebraska. It's not Colorado at all, really. It's a really small school. We play all the junior colleges in Colorado, and I was there for 2 years. And then on my second year, got recruited by ECU. And first time ECU called me, like, I had never heard of ECU, to be honest. I checked my phone. I said voicemail from East Carolina University, and I was like, man, I thought there was just North and South, but quickly got educated that no, East Carolina is a pretty big school, pretty big baseball school out in North Carolina, and man, I was really excited once I figured all that out and put it together that they were getting a hold of me. So yeah, after junior college, made my way to ECU, and then you guys have seen the rest.
Yeah, no doubt. The tradition of the East Carolina baseball program is obviously very proud, and a lot of success down through the years. And this year was no different. But talking about your childhood there in Colorado, you talk about your background in hockey, and I thought that was the case. I thought I was remembering that correctly without asking you about it pre-show. But so what position did you play? Were you a goalie? And talk about just your background in hockey. And I know obviously you have the Avalanche, and then just talk about just being a hockey fan and hockey player growing up.
Yeah, everyone asks if I was a goalie just because I played catcher, but I was actually a defenseman. The reason I was a defenseman was I had those slow moving feet, couldn't play forward. But I think hockey kind of set a big background just in my athletic career, just because it's a real competitive sport, especially in Colorado. I played for some ex-pro coaches. So in northern Colorado, where I'm from, there's a minor league hockey team named the Colorado Eagles, and then I played for the Colorado Junior Eagles. And a few ex-players would be our coaches. I remember one was Aaron Grossel. He was a fun. And then we had another big coach in my life came from hockey, was Mark Devine, and Coach Devine played college hockey played professional hockey, just played hockey at a high level, and he would always get on us, and he was so talented as a hockey player that we would be, like, in middle schoolers, and he would shoot the puck at you, but he was so good, he'd perfectly, like, miss your head to, like, wake you up and get you locked in. He's probably the first coach I ever played for that would legit just chew you out on the ice, but at the end of the day, he was, like, an Italian guy, and he had that voice, he'd come up to you and be like, "I love you, brother." So, yeah, I mean, hockey was a lot of fun growing up. Big Avs fan right now. They're in the Stanley Cup playoffs, winning the series 3-1. Gonna watch that next game and hope they win the cup.
In addition to your fandom there with the Avalanche, obviously you have the Rockies, the Nuggets, the Broncos right there. You also had the University of Colorado, which doesn't have baseball, but just talk about growing up, and you mentioned playing basketball as well. Who were some of those teams you pulled for, and your favorite athletes in those sports?
Yeah, so I mean, on the college aspect of baseball, like not a lot of people know, there's only two Division I schools that have baseball in Colorado, and one of them is Air Force. So if you're not really looking for the military, that literally only leaves University of Northern Colorado as a Division I baseball program inside of Colorado. And so yeah, I mean, you really look up to the Rockies. I grew up about an hour north of Denver, like you said, so always go to Rockies games growing up. Um, that was kind of surreal a little bit, looking in the Texas dugout, and there's Tulo coaching them, just because like growing up in Colorado, Tulo was kind of the man, especially when I was right at that age where I was starting to understand baseball and really watch baseball, man. Like every kid in Colorado had a Tulo jersey. Every kid in Colorado looked up to Tulo. So I mean, that was just cool to see him out there and think about, man, I've come a long way in my career for sure.
And connecting the East Carolina baseball program and the Rockies, right, I guess it was right around the time you were being recruited by the Pirates, and then arriving in Greenville is when Jeff Hoffman was wearing the purple and black for the Rockies. So I know you have probably some familiarity with Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I was being recruited. I heard about ECU, and then you start putting the pieces together. And you're like, man, this guy was a former Pirate, so it was pretty cool to just see it kind of come full circle like that.
Playing the position, being behind the plate like you are a catcher. Um, when did you become a catcher? And that's something that is certainly not for everyone. A very challenging position. So many intangibles, toughness, leadership, etc., are required to be an excellent catcher. And especially when you're doing it in an environment like Greenville, North Carolina, where it gets so warm toward the end of the season. But just talk about your background there. When did you start catching? And in addition to catcher, what other positions did you play growing up?
Yeah, so my main position was a catcher ever since I was 10 years old, which is pretty early when you think about it. But I mean, I played third base and I played like shortstop a little bit and a little bit of second base. But I think I really just started catching when I was 10 years old. I think what got me back there was I always had a high baseball IQ, even from a young age. I just always learned the game at a high level, and that's what got me back there to start. Was just I knew I could help the team that way. And then I had a lot of great mentors along my way. I think when I was younger, a guy named Logan Moore would come and work out with us every now and then. He's a former minor leaguer. He's still playing in professional baseball right now, and he would come work with me as a catcher, and he would just teach me a lot. And then as I got older, at my junior college, I had a lot of former catchers that taught me. And my head coach, my sophomore year of junior college, he was a former catcher too. Was even a bullpen catcher for the Orioles. So, you just learn a lot about the workload and how you have to manage it. And obviously, Coach Godwin was a former catcher and Coach Knight, but you learn a lot about just managing the workload. Like I said, it takes a kind of special person to be back there, especially every game. I think part of it is obviously the physical aspect, but even more so, like you were touching on, it's the mental aspect where you kind of got to get your mind in the right place every game because your legs will never feel as good as they do on opening day, but you have to find a way to loosen up and convince yourself like there's no room for an excuse today. You just got to go out there and play at a high level. And I mean, I like the challenge a lot because it's just there's a lot of ways you can impact the game behind the plate. That's why I loved catching. Just you can receive well, you can block well, you can throw well, you don't always have to be hitting well to have an impact on the game. There's just every single pitch you can have an influence on how the game's decided.
No doubt about it. And let's dive a little bit more into your recruitment to East Carolina. You talk about getting that phone call and the voicemail, and doing your research to figure out exactly what East Carolina University and the baseball program was all about. But was it I guess Coach Palumbo that had left you that voicemail, and just talk about getting to know Coach Godwin? As you mentioned, he was a catcher, and of course works with the catchers, and then you also have Coach Knight. AK had played the position for Coach Godwin at Ole Miss.
hmm So I guess it's kind of funny when you're in a small junior college in Colorado, you hear from a big time school like Coach Palumbo called me the first time, and I was like, man, that was cool, but I'm probably never going to hear from him again. Like, I'm sure they're going to find somewhere closer to them in a warm weather state. And, Coach Palumbo kept calling me. Eventually, he came out to watch me play in Arizona, and I played well that game, and he ended up having me out for a visit. And as I met Coach Godwin, I remember sitting in his desk on my official visit, and Coach Godwin looks me in the eyes, is like, don't come here if you don't want to work hard. And, as a recruit, you think, okay, that's interesting, but I think I can handle it. Then you come there as a player and you're like, man, these guys do work hard, and that's why they're so good. But yeah, like Coach Palumbo recruited me, got to meet Coach P a lot, got to meet CG, and then eventually AK came. I think it was that summer or that fall that I'd already been there. AK was the catching coach that first year or actually CG and AK were both the catching coaches when I first got there. Helped me out a lot, and I think the biggest thing was, like I said, they both just from a mentality aspect, they don't tolerate you not being ready to play or being ready to practice, and that's every day.
No doubt about it. I've heard Coach Palumbo over the years, specifically, the last year or two, in different interviews, and I think even this year's East Carolina Baseball Media Day when he was addressing the local media, just talking about how Coach Godwin is, of course, very direct, and saying to prospects exactly what you just said. Don't come to East Carolina if you don't want to work hard, because it's not going to go well for you, basically. And Coach Palumbo said, he kind of laughed and said, "Hey, that can be a good thing and a bad thing, but you know what you're getting before you sign on the dotted line, so to speak."
Yeah, exactly. You kind of, and the funny thing is, like I said earlier, when you're a recruit, you think you know what they mean when they say they work hard, and then you get here, it's a whole nother level. But it's good for you. It gets you better. It gets, at the very least, you become a better person. So, I mean, that's a big testament to the program.
In addition to East Carolina, before choosing the Pirates, and what other programs did you consider out of Northeastern Junior College?
ECU was my first visit. My first Division I visit, I should say. It was kind of, I was going to base all of my recruiting on how that visit went, and I went to ECU and I had a good visit there, got a good offer, and that was kind of the rest for me. I didn't take any other visits. I think my next in line was going to be Cal Poly in California, and then also I really liked. There's a great Division II program named Colorado Mesa out in Colorado. I feel like they're playing for the D2 national championship every year, and that was also really high on my list.
Yeah, certainly familiar a little bit with them on the D2 ranks, and because a good friend of mine who's actually at App State now, Britt Johnson, he and Kermit Smith, the head coach there at Appalachian, they had been at Lander down in South Carolina, and they had made two trips to the Division II College World Series in Cary, and so a lot of those powerful Division II programs, I'm a little familiar with them because of that. But you talk about working hard. I guess arriving on campus in the fall of 2019.
Summer 2019.
Yeah, summer 2019, of course. And when you got on campus, just talk about just making that transition from the junior college ranks to everything that Division I baseball at that level entails, as far as strength and conditioning. And I know you have mission week and everything with fall ball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of hard stuff you do here that you don't do in junior college, but I mean, between Division One baseball and JUCO, there's a massive difference just on like the support you have. Like at junior college, we had my sophomore year, we had a head coach and assistant coach, and that was it. And then at ECU, I mean, you have a head coach, you have an assistant coach, another assistant coach, another assistant coach, a pitching coach. You got managers who will help you out with your laundry. You got graduate managers like Turner Brown, my last year, he was also would help you out. You have a strength coach, and then you have an academic advisor all in your corner. So it's pretty interesting just from that aspect. Like another really cool thing was when I got here, I think the first thing I did when I got to ECU in that summer was just go to my locker because I'd never had a locker room before. In junior college, we didn't have lockers. We all just changed out of our cars. So, I mean, when I first got to that locker, it felt kind of surreal. It kind of felt like, man, this is really like big boy baseball, and got my name and got my where I'm from hanging up on a locker, a place to keep all my stuff. I don't have to lug it back and forth. Like that was the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. Something that probably a lot of people don't think about. I'm sure it varies depending on the program you're at, but I'm sure more often than not that probably is the case at most junior college programs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just all the support you can get at, at the Division One level is pretty cool, and like even little things such as gear. I remember in junior college, I wanted to get a new bat. So I had to pick up a little summer part-time job just to get that new bat. And then at junior and Division One level, we obviously have a great deal with Easton where we get to swing some sweet bats. So little stuff like that. It makes I think I'm glad I went from junior college just because I appreciate it all at the D1 level.
So they're in the fall of 19. Obviously, little did we know what would follow there in the spring of 2020 with a shortened season, only playing 17 games. But just talk about your role within the program and where you were headed into that 2020 season coming out of the fall. And you I know played in 12 games of the 17 and started 7, and you had a significant role as a part-time starter early on in that 2020 campaign.
Yeah, in 2020, I was backing up Stump to start the year. Then I think there was a couple injuries, and all of a sudden I moved into the DH role. And it was for me, it was just as soon as I think so. A little tracing back a little bit, like out of junior college, was I just wanted to go to school at one. I think junior college we didn't win at as high of a level as I wanted to, and that's really what drew me to ECU. Was like I want to go to the place that wins at the highest level there is, and that's what I chose ECU for. And so that 2020 year, I was like, my mindset was literally just how can I help the team win, whether it's catching, whether it's DHing. So as I kind of fell into more roles, like that was my mindset the whole year. Nothing really changed, and I think that's what kind of allowed me to play into those different roles. Like I just didn't care. It was just for me, it was just about being on the field and helping the team win.
And before we move on and talk about the last couple seasons, from a player's perspective, tell us about the craziness of that 2020 season. We've heard it from Coach Godwin, and I'm sure Coach Palumbo just talking about, and you guys were getting wind of things on social media as you were headed down to UNC Wilmington to play, and it was kind of an eerie feeling to say the least. Very weird. And then you had the series with Columbia that weekend canceled. You're trying to find a new opponent. I mean, Coach Godwin obviously and the staff were, and then all of a sudden everything just came to an end.
Yeah, exactly. We were on the bus to Wilmington, and the Ivy League canceled. And then we put it together that, well, Columbia's in the Ivy League. And then before we get off the bus, I remember CG tweeted, like, we're looking for an opponent because Columbia's not going to be here. And we thought nothing of it. Maybe it's just the Ivy League canceling their season. And then we played the Wilmington game. And then by the time we were back on the bus, or maybe, I think probably late into the night, because you get home a little bit late on that bus ride. The NCAA baseball had tweeted that they canceled the College World Series, and it's just kind of a lot of uncertainty. I think with the rest of the world too, you're like, well, I don't know much about this disease going on. I don't know much about anything, but all of a sudden the baseball season's canceled, and it just happened over the course of one of our baseball games, and it was just the most bizarre thing ever. We had no idea really what was going on. I remember CG told the team, he said, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not sure what's going on. And we tried to practice and canceled practice, and it was all kind of a blur. And then all of a sudden the season's over, which it was obviously hugely disappointing. I think the most disappointing part was just some of the outgoing seniors. I think Barber, just for their senior year to end like that, for Barber, and Barber didn't come back. It was just really disappointing because Barber came back from a hip injury, probably one of the nicest guys on the team. You just want to see him see his career through. So, yeah, it's definitely was a weird time period.
No doubt. And, in the fall of 2020, you had East Carolina football not playing its first game until the last weekend of September. So, remind our viewers and listeners what it was like for the baseball program in the fall of 2020.
Yeah, I think we tried to have it as normal as we could. I think obviously there were different rules in the classroom, and then different rules in the weight room, and different rules inside of our facility. We were just trying to stay spread out and wear masks and whatnot. But we tried to have it as normal as we could. I think a big difference was we didn't get to have any outside competition. Usually every fall you'll play a school like Virginia or like a Liberty, and it's just nice to play a different team after you're playing each other all fall. But we didn't get to do that. But like I think we really just try to keep it as normal as possible. Obviously you get kind of used to all the new nuances, new rules with COVID that just becomes a part of life at that time period. I think the happiest thing is you're just happy to be out there playing baseball. Everything that comes with it, you're like, fine, I'll deal with it. I'm just happy to be out here again.
One of the things that it was good that the NCAA did it, and guys like yourself, as well as several others, received that year of eligibility back. But it certainly, some unintended consequences there on the back end with Coach Godwin and Coach Palumbo, and the way they have to manage things, trying to work all the numbers out to get them where they need to be with the. Because like right now, I heard Coach Godwin in a recent interview earlier this week just saying that our 11.7 scholarships are actually not all spent, but because of some of the roster situations, with the numbers that you're working with there, that we cannot spend that money really.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that's happened. I think they've done a good job just with how upfront they are with the players, just because, they are controlling it as much as they can. And as a player, you want what's best for you and best for the team. And I think what they've done is just be real upfront about it.
Definitely. And, so going into that 2021 season, coming off the weird 2020, just talk about your role as a part-time starter, very much like it was in 2020 behind Stump there, splitting time with him. You started 22 ball games, 14 of those behind the plate. A very solid season for you. I know you guys are focused on quality at bats, not your batting average, but you hit 325, and you had several multi-hit games. And I remember one game specifically against Charlotte where you had a 3-hit game.
Yeah, that was the 3-hit game was awesome because I got one funny story about that game. So we're not allowed to have our phones in the facility, and pregame Coach G saw me with my phone in the facility, and he lit me up, and I was like, I've never been so nervous for a baseball game because he found me with my phone, and obviously never made that mistake again. But I think I was so locked in because I was like, man, if I don't play good, CG is gonna send me. He's probably just gonna send me home for the rest of the year. But yeah, that game was also, a cool thing about that game was my parents had flown in for that game, so I was also ready to go on that aspect. But like you said, in 2021, backed up Stump and had some DH starts in there too. I mean, a big thing for me, like I said earlier, where I just wanted to win was I knew going into that year, my role was going to be it's going to be fairly big just because there's 4 game weekends and a big doubleheader. I just knew that I was going to obviously be catching one of those games. And my biggest thing was I just didn't want there to be a difference between starter or backup catcher. I think on some teams you could see there'd be a notable difference between the starter and the backup. And when the backup was in, that we would take advantage of it, steal bases or whatever. So I think a big thing for me was I wanted to help Stump stay fresh by catching that game, but also just had there not be a had not let there not be a difference between me and him behind the plate, like the team that I just wanted to keep the pitchers confident.
I talk about your numbers on the whole. In preparation for this interview, I was looking over the numbers from that season in your bio, and I know you were very good with two outs. I know that's a big emphasis within the program as far as, hey, just because we have two outs, you still have a third of the inning left, and so on. So just talk about that. The approach within the program and what Coach Godwin and staff communicate to you guys, because I know you were very good hitting, I think, something like 350 with two outs and driving in a lot of runs.
Yeah, I think it's just the mindset we have as hitters. Some teams, there's two outs, they might think, oh crap, we need to hit to score them. And for us, we get kind of excited because we know two outs, if you get a hit and score them, like the team's just gonna be fired up, and we feed off of that energy. So I think just that little mentality flip where it excites the hitters to be in there with two outs, runner in scoring position.
So in 2021, Pirates earn a host spot for a third consecutive season. And just what are your memories of that 2021 Greenville Regional and, that come from behind win over Charlotte, where that was one of the loudest, games in Clark LeClaire Stadium that probably until this season.
Yeah, that was my first time hosting a regional, so that was my first time experiencing that, just seeing that magnitude of fans. I've never seen that in the stadium before. That Charlotte game was definitely the most memorable. I think I remember Bryson's hit the most, and then Bryson's hit followed by Hoover's hit was just two key moments there. And I think also my greatest memory was watching Bryson make that flying catch in center field. That was pretty amazing. But yeah, just winning that regional all together as a whole was a great experience. Seeing each guy have different moments where they succeeded was really rewarding as a teammate.
And then, moving on to the Nashville Super Regional and, going against a Vandy program that's had so much success over the last, 2 decades or so under Coach Corbin. Just talk about that experience, because you were able to get significant reps there in Nashville. And I know that, obviously paid dividends, moving into your senior year.
Yeah, in that super regional, I got a pitch at bat late in the game one. And then, like I said, that was also really cool just to see that atmosphere, an SEC atmosphere with a ton of fans and a ton of our fans too, which was even cooler for me. Was like we traveled really well into an SEC atmosphere, and they our fans held their own. You could hear them loud as day. And what was really cool about going to that regional was everyone talked about Kumar and Leiter, but I mean were just as confident with our 1-2 of Gavin and Wiz. Gavin and Wiz both did a really good job. Gavin towed the line with Kumar and on the national stage, and yeah, it was a great experience that really led us into the next year too.
And in game two, you were behind the plate, correct? So,
Oh, I was not.
okay. I was trying to remember. I knew at certain times. Okay, so moving into this season, or actually before that, as far as Carson Wisenhunt, no need to rehash everything that went on there. But at the same time, you talk about the tremendous arm that Carson is, one of the top, in some people's opinion, the top left-handed pitcher in the country. And I know he's currently pitching up in the Cape. So, working with him behind the scenes, fall and practice, just and talk about Carson and everything that he has the potential to do long term in his career.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he has the potential to play professional baseball, which is I think we come across a lot of those players in our program, but it's something that you shouldn't take lightly. The opportunity to play professional baseball is pretty sweet. Hunt, obviously his stuff is just a different kind of stuff than a lot of people you catch. He has a really live fastball, really good changeup, and then a really sharp curveball that you just don't come across all the time either.
So going into 2022, you knew you had the chance to be the guy with Stump moving on into professional baseball. So just talk about the battle for that position. You also had Justin Wilcoxon, and then also McChrystal.
Yeah, so I mean, I look at catching position as it's always going to be by a committee. There's always going to be multiple guys that have to get back there. And I wasn't really sure what my role was to start the year. Jada was a starting catcher to start the year, and I was catching a few games here or there. And then eventually I came into the starter role, and I guess I kind of took it and ran with it. But yeah, I mean, it's just for me, it was never the mindset of, oh, I need to beat this guy out. It was just there's going to be multiple guys behind the plate, and you just got to be the best version of yourself each day.
So throughout the beginning of 2022, obviously so many high expectations, and understandably so. But in the first half of the season didn't go the way anyone would have liked for it to. But you guys, to your credit, kind of circle the wagon, so to speak. They're halfway home. They're after a series opening loss up at Cincinnati. And I know Coach Godwin spoke publicly as far as the way from that point on, Cooch, yourself, etc. There was really more of a player-led atmosphere there within the program. So just talk about that, what you can.
Yeah, like you said, after that first loss to Cincinnati, CG said that the players are going to go over the game notes for our pregame meeting. Usually, CG kind of talks about the game, and then we'll talk about the next game, and he put it all on us, which was, at the time, you're kind of like, this is kind of interesting, but I think it was good for us just to get in front of the team and speak because I think guys really started to listen to me and Cooch up there, and yeah, it gave us an opportunity to really dive into the game a little bit more and learn the game and talk about how the flow of the game matters and how you can influence the game even if you struggle at first. I think what guys really grasped onto was just the game's never over. Whether we're down in the first three innings or tied or ahead, the game's never over. You have to keep playing the game. And I think that's what helped us with our comebacks a lot. We had a lot of comebacks in our win streak, and I think we can attest a little bit of that to just us talking about the game. And what you realize after the game is like at certain points of the game, when you're inside the game, you might think, man, this isn't going our way. We're not going to win today. And then you reflect after the fact and you realize, man, this game was within reach. My mindset wasn't right. And I think that's what really helped transition as well.
So, across the board, talk about that. You mentioned the mindset, and your Coach Godwin in a couple of post games when he was asked by the media, just about that very thing. As far as, hey, Coach, do you feel like this team's going to maturing a little bit and getting to where they need to be? He said, I honestly don't know what I'm going to get right now. Prior to that Cincinnati series, and he had said that a couple times. So just talk about guys getting to where they need to be mentally and with their approach and focus.
Yeah, I mean, there's different learning curves for different players and different learning curves for different teams. He'll tell you, Coach G will tell you too, like each team has a different story. I think last year, or I should say the 2021, we had a lot of older guys that had an understanding of their role and kind of had a plan for how the year would go and how to respond to certain things. And in 2022, it was a little different than that. We had a little bit more finding our way. And I think another thing is as the year wore on, was when we were winning games, it was coming from a ton of different sources on our team. There were different guys supplying different moments in the games that helped us win. It wasn't always just one or two guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely saw contributions from a lot of places, and early in the first half of the season, you saw what the team could be. It just wasn't there consistently. But then, to your guys' credit, you put it together, 120 straight, which is the longest win streak in East Carolina's storied baseball history. So just, I know one of the things you always hear, whether it's from this team or we've talked to the 2004 team, several guys that were part of that 19-game win streak, and they just said, honestly, you're just so focused on the day-to-day process that you really don't even think about the win streak. It just takes care of itself.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really want to talk about the win streak or anything because we're weird baseball players that think it might jinx it. But yeah, I mean, you look back and you're like, holy cow, 20 games in a row, like that's unreal. But in the time, it's just, all right, we won yesterday. Let's try and win today. And I think another thing was just we had a lot of swagger about us in that time period. We just knew like we're gonna find a way to win. It's what we do now. I think that's kind of the swagger we might not have had to start the year that we found later in that it's just we're gonna find a way to win. It's what we do. It's who we are, and um, as I said earlier, it's we just know that whoever's up at the plate or whoever's pitching, like they could have a moment today that's gonna help us win.
And one of those things, or some of those things rather, that really started that win streak and kept it going is you had Ryder Giles make that decision, go into Coach Godwin and talking about becoming a pitcher and doing what he could to help the team. And you had Zach bumping over from second base to short and just playing remarkably well there, only having 5 errors on the season, which is just unheard of for a middle infielder, period, especially a guy that played that much shortstop. But and then you had guys like yourself. You encountered some personal adversity there. I guess it was right before the Cincinnati series.
Yep, yeah, it was.
So you had gone back home to Colorado for that situation. A death in the family?
Yeah, my grandmother passed away. I think it was I flew home that all I know is I missed the Sunday VCU game, and then I missed the Tuesday NC State game. And I flew home, and then, well, another crazy story is on my drive to the airport, I run into a deer. So I had an insult to injury right there. But yeah, I get back, fly back from Colorado, do a pitcher, catcher, hitter that Wednesday, and then that Thursday fly to Cincinnati, and we play Friday, and we lose again. So at that time, I think it's a 3-game skid, and then that's when we started the player meetings, and we won that Saturday. And I mean, I think that Sunday game was a really big part of our year. It was a crazy game, a lot of runs, a lot of hits, and to come out on top was a big. Because I mean, when you're struggling as a team and you're in one of those battles against, it can be easy to let go of the game and lose. And we held on and won. I think that was a big kind of like we understood from that game that we have a chance to win a lot of games or at least hang into games and stay in the fight.
And as far as you personally, Coach Godwin said on multiple occasions, talking to the media, how he referred to you as the glue. So just talk about. I know that had to mean a lot to you. Obviously, your head coach, who you have so much respect for, giving you the credit for everything you earn.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge compliment from Coach G to be called the glue of the team. Um, yeah, it's something I took pride in as a senior, 6th-year senior. You're a little bit older than a lot of the guys. Professional baseball might not be on my horizon. So my goal for this year was to just help my teammates as much as they can, their baseball careers, just in a way of giving back to all the people that have helped me in my baseball career. And statistics for me, my personal statistics, they just never really mattered. So I just really wanted to help guys on my team grow as baseball players, grow as people. And I think it took care of itself where, I could have a good year just because I was worried about the right things. And yeah, to be called the glue player of the team by Coach G, it's a massive compliment, especially coming from him.
And during the second half of the season, as so many guys did, the bat, really developed for many players on this roster, and the offense really came into its own and started to look like the East Carolina offense, and we've grown accustomed to seeing under Coach Godwin and staff over the last 8 years. But just talk about yourself. I think you went from being down there around 200 to hitting right around 300 for a large part of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I never felt unconfident at the plate. I think I had a lot of hard outs, a lot of outs. I just found a lot of swings. I just found gloves. I wasn't striking out a whole lot, so I was keeping the ball in play. So I just knew like eventually it's going to even itself out. And eventually I'm going to have a weekend where I might get hot or I might have a few squib hits that the game will even itself out. And I just kept telling myself that. And eventually, I had a couple games where I might have had a few hits or had a few balls I didn't hit well that found the ground, and that's kind of what helped me stay confident the whole year was just I knew the game was going to even itself out, and I knew particularly had bad at bats at the plate. I just didn't have much to show for it.
Absolutely. That's obviously the reason that the emphasis is there on those quality at bats because if you have a quality at bat as you just outlined, I mean, that's all you can do. And sometimes you're just going to have tough luck. And that was certainly your case.
Yeah,
Um,
you can drive it, but you can't steer it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I remember you referenced earlier. I think we were on air when you mentioned this as far as Turner Brown. But I remember. I don't remember if it was Turner's junior year, but there was one year where his average wasn't very good, but he had so much tough luck that he was probably the best 230 or 240 hitter in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of in that same realm, it almost reminds me of Starling this year. I think Starling would go up to the plate, and I would see his batting average on the board, and I would be like, "Man, that's just not right. Like that's a little low because he's been swinging good." But yeah, Starling in that same aspect, like I don't know what he finished at, but it was I want to say it might have been lower 200s, but it just never felt like he was a lower 200s hitter. Just he kept putting together a lot of at bats. I mean, another thing is we just all had confidence in him as his teammates. We know how good of a hitter he is. That we know that he's still a totally capable hitter up there.
Yeah, like you said, that's funny you bring up Jacob Starling because when he came to the plate there and down a run in the top of the ninth in game two against Texas, I had a ton of confidence that he could deliver, and he surely did.
Yeah, yeah, he might not want. He'll be fine with me saying this, but I mean, I don't think he was playing at 100%. He had that broken foot, and
No,
he won't use it.
it was evident watching him run the bases.
Yeah, so I mean, he won't use it as an excuse. But I mean, you play a certain number of baseball games in a year, like your body's going to wear on you, especially if you're also having something ailing you. So I mean, I think as he heals, he's going to be a real special player.
It's funny you bring up the fact that you did an excellent job with two strikes and not striking out much, 22 strikeouts on the season, and I mean, you walked 15 times, but you also got hit by 12 pitches, which was the most on the team, despite having anywhere from like 75 to 100 at bats less. And I know in previous seasons you'd been hit by a significant number of pitches. So just kind of talk about that and the way you had a way of finding your way on base via the free pass, even when you weren't getting base hits.
Yeah, my goal this year was I wanted to be 1-to-1, strike out to walk ratio, and then I guess with walks, I factor in hit by pitches, obviously. So I did that this year where I was a little bit better than the 1-to-1 ratio, which is I was pretty proud of. But yeah, I guess I don't know what it is. I've always been hit in my career. I have no idea why. I don't know if it's I have an ugly face or what's going on, but I think another thing is I just don't move. Especially with 2 strikes, when I see the ball coming at me, it's like, well, you just kinda just bail me out, I'm not gonna move.
And like I mentioned earlier on, I mean, we're only a week and a half out since the season ended, but just talk about you've had a little opportunity to reflect on what you guys were able to accomplish. The 20-game win streak, winning a conference championship, both regular season and the tournament for the first time ever. Hosting a 4 straight regional, hosting the first ever super regional on campus with that number 8 national seed. So just you now that you have had a chance to reflect at least a little, what are your thoughts on everything the team accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy everything that we accomplished. I think there's a lot of things that as a fan you think should happen, but they just aren't easy to do, especially when you're inside of it, and I think of, like, sweeping Wilmington midweek, sweeping, Campbell midweek. I think about the game against Memphis where their guy has a no hitter and Mayhew has a perfect game, and the game can go either way. And even though Memphis isn't a top tier team, like it's still a game that's just still a college baseball game. I think that game we found a way to win, and then we go on the win streak, and we win the regular season, and then we win the conference tournament. And that was the first time in CG's coaching career that we've done both, where we've won the regular season and the postseason tournament. or American championship, and then to host another regional, and then to get the national seed. And I mean, so when you get the national seed, everyone just assumes, well, we're going to be hosting a super, but it's no, you still got to go win your regional. And our regional wasn't particularly easy. I think that Virginia game was just a testament to that. And then you got to go, and like just hosting that super regional, the first one ever on campus, was an amazing experience too. And like I was saying earlier, like it's not easy to just do what you're supposed to do. Like I think our game against Coppin State, where we just played really well as a team and won by a good amount of runs, like that's the expectation, but it's still not easy to go out there and do it. I think the previous year is just a testament to that against Norfolk State. Like it was a really close game until Franny got a swing off there. So I think that's the coolest thing about this team is we found a way to just do things that a lot of teams, we did a total amount of things that a lot of teams can't say they did. And I'm referencing all the midweek wins, all the regular season, the postseason, all those accomplishments. It's pretty cool that one team could accomplish all that.
The atmosphere, both at the regional and super regional, and we have a good atmosphere throughout the season. But just by the nature of the number of games that are played versus, especially football. I mean, when you're playing right at 30 home games in the regular season, it's tough for everyone to get out in those numbers for each and every game. But and you would expect, and with everything that's online in the postseason, playing for a championship, obviously the intensity takes a notch or two up, to say the least. But just talk about that atmosphere at both the regional and super regional, and Pirate Nation just continue to make an impression on the nation, because Greg Olson on ESPN, the color analyst, the former Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame pitcher, he had played at Auburn. He said, "I've never seen anything like this."
Yeah, so my favorite regular season game was the Campbell game, and I was thinking to myself, man, that was a regional type atmosphere. And then the regional came and it was a whole nother level. And then I was like, man, that was pretty cool. Then the super regional comes and it finds a whole nother level. And I just don't know how Pirate Nation was able to do that, just keep finding new levels. And then what was really cool is like you're catching up to start an inning and you hear the announcement that we set another record for attendance and the crowd goes wild. It's pretty surreal just playing in front of that many people and having them pull for you on your side. I think my favorite game of the regional was definitely that Virginia game. Just playing under lights is special, and playing under lights in front of that many fans is cool. My favorite moment probably in my whole baseball career, I would say, was just when Zach comes in from shortstop and gets I think he goes walk, punch out to end the inning or end the game, and just hugging him after that punch out, man, that was the coolest thing ever. Just because it's a night game, it kind of sets the table a bit more, and fans are going crazy, and you're just celebrating with a couple of your best friends, which was really cool. And yeah, like I said, the super regional. By that point, I had pretty high expectations for Greenville and for ECU, and once again, they were surpassed.
Since you brought up Zach and tremendous job he did coming in, like you mentioned, and closing out that UVA game, just the demeanor he has, just to be able to have that short memory when he walked the guy and the bases were loaded, and then to get back-to-back punch outs in that situation, incredible. And you guys wore that patch, Nico. Unfortunately, obviously, as has been well documented, Nico passed away back in the fall, and he meant so much to you guys, and Coach Godwin, having also coached Jake Agnos. But just talk about what that meant to you guys to be able to make this season so good, not only for yourselves but also Zach, and Zach play such a big role like he did.
Yeah, it clearly meant a lot to us that we were wearing the Nico patch. Zach and the whole Agnos family, they're pretty well loved by everybody in our program. So it just meant a lot to us that we would put together a good season wearing that patch. And I mean, for to touch on what Zach did this year is pretty incredible. You mentioned he didn't have a lot of errors in the field, so he played a pretty premier shortstop, had a lot of web gems, and then he hits in the leadoff spot, hits like what 330, and then comes in and can just close out innings when we need him to. I mean, that's pretty amazing that one individual could wear that many hats for a team and do it all insanely well.
have several folks chiming in on Facebook and YouTube, and specifically Josh O'Neill. And Josh says, thanks for all the memories, Big Ben. Please visit the left field jungle next season. And then Mark Calloway also said, you did well, Ben, for the Pirates, and good luck in your future. Go Pirates.
That's awesome. Appreciate that from both of them.
And then also I received a question via text message. This one's from Waylon Summerlin. From Tom Earnhardt. Tom Earnhardt said, could you ask for Ben's assessment of the catcher position at ECU moving forward, both with obviously Wilcoxon, and then you have McChrystal, and then you have some quality catchers coming in with the class of 2022.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I don't know the recruits, but I know J-Dub and Ryan really well. I think J-Dub and Ryan both have, I mean, where they started last year and J-Dub where he started a couple years ago as well. They have, I mean, they are not the same guys. They've grown so much. I think they both kind of would drive me crazy at times just because they want to learn, but they're both total sponges. They both learned a ton this year. And I mean, I have complete confidence in both of them. So I mean, it's going to be a battle for who's the guy. But like I said earlier, catching is going to be it's a job where you need multiple guys, and it's in great hands. They're both super talented players. They're both great people, and they're both gonna do great things in different aspects for the team, whether it's catching or hitting. I mean, you saw J-Dub DH a lot this year and did a great job. But then Ryan has a great bat as well. I mean, they can both be great players and both will be great players. So I mean, I'm pretty excited to watch them develop just from a fan perspective, just because I know how much potential they both have, and I think for them both, the sky is honestly the limit. They can both play professional baseball and will both be great players here at ECU. That's for sure.
Yeah, when we saw it in small doses this year, I remember the home run that McChrystal hit down at College of Charleston. And then also, obviously Wilcoxon exhibited his power as well. Unfortunately, he had the walk-off that was reversed.
Yeah.
It did not count against Bryant.
And I mean, Ryan too. Like I said, so J-Dub was the catcher to start the year. So you guys saw him behind the plate. He does pretty well back there. Then for Ryan as a freshman to pop back there in the regional against Coppin State, and you wouldn't have ever noticed it was a different guy back there, which they both have a ton of talent, a ton of potential, and they both showed it at times this year, which is, really exciting for me. I'm sure the coaches are more excited than I am about both of them. So yeah.
As we're wrapping things up, Ben, just talk about your future plans. And you said, unfortunately, professional baseball is probably not in your future, but you have a degree in applied economics. You're well on your way to a master's in quantitative economics and econometrics. So, and just talk about that, and then just broadly, the accomplishments of not only yourself but this team as a whole in the classroom. You referenced as Rebecca Wade, the academic advisor. Just talk about the culture there with Coach Godwin, because as much as you guys excel on the field, and you also excel that way in the classroom.
Yeah. Well, first off, kudos to you for pronouncing it right. My own parents can barely pronounce that master's degree. So, like you said, I'll have my bachelor's in economics from ECU, and then I mean one of the great things was I always wanted to get my master's, and with I guess I shouldn't say great things, but one of the things that is a byproduct of COVID was I got that extra year, and so I was able to finish my master's at ECU while also playing baseball, which not a lot of guys can say they're able to do. So yeah, I got my master's in quantitative economics and econometrics. I'm finishing that up this summer, and then I should have it and be ready to go. Looking for some jobs, like we kind of talked on off the air. Thinking about staying in baseball, or also thinking about moving into the financial services side as an analyst or what have you. And yeah, the academic side with Coach G, it's a little bit different than a lot of places, I think. So at junior college was my other perspective. There it is, if just have passing grades. That's kind of the expectation. And like I said earlier, it's part of it might be there's not as many people to monitor everything. But here, you have Rebecca and you have your academic leaders, and academics are not something CG just ignores. They're at the forefront of everything. He mentions to the team if you have a good test score. He, yeah. So I mean, so for our team to, I think I don't know what it is, but so many years in a row we have had the is it a 3.6 GPA? It's pretty amazing. And I mean that's a thing that for me helped me commit here too. Is when I talk to my mom and dad about where I'm going to college, their first question's never, well, what's the baseball coach like, or what's how's the baseball team as a whole? It's, well, what is the school like? And you talk about ECU and all the programs it has to offer, and then you talk about the baseball team and how well they do in the classroom. And it was a pretty easy sale for me, as it's just not only was it a place that I was going to win at and a place I could play baseball at a high level at, but it was honestly the total package, which for me it was huge, just because I knew probably professional baseball wasn't in my future, but I wanted to get a great degree from a great university.
So with that degree, like you said, a lot of folks may struggle to even pronounce it. But what are some of the things that you would be potentially interested in doing with that degree?
Yeah, I had an internship last summer with a financial advising group, and I like the financial services industry. So I think just ranging from anywhere, honestly, but a couple of the jobs that you look at are just a financial analyst job, which would be or a credit analyst job would be both two things I would love to have. I'm just now starting getting into looking at everything because I just really wanted to focus on enjoying my last year playing baseball, especially at the collegiate level and especially at ECU. It's pretty special. I didn't want to take it for granted and stress myself out. So I really just enjoyed it this year, which I have no regrets at all because, like I said, it's pretty special to play at ECU. And when you have people asking for your autograph, like it still was surreal to me every time.
No doubt. And like you said, not necessarily a good thing on the whole, but one of the positives that did come out of the whole COVID situation was that it allowed guys like yourself, and last year you had Matt Bridges and Cam Colmore, who got strong starts on their MBAs, and other guys as well. They were able to do more toward those master degrees during their playing days than they obviously would have been able to otherwise.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to get a master's degree while you're playing baseball. It's definitely is I mean, there's not a lot of programs where guys are doing that either. So it's a testament to, just the academic level that we hold all the players to here at ECU.
Well, Ben, certainly appreciate your time this afternoon. Did not intend on going nearly this long, but I think Pirate Nation will enjoy the conversation, and whether if they were tuned in right now or if they're checking out the archive. But I really appreciate the time, and I think I can speak for everyone when I say thank you so much for everything you did for East Carolina baseball and helping achieve all the success that was achieved during your career.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time talking. I didn't even notice we went long. It's always fun to talk about baseball and talk about ECU baseball as well.
We'll certainly, stay in touch, and best of luck in your future. And we'll have you on sometime down the road during the 2023 season to talk Pirate baseball.
Looking forward to it.
That is former East Carolina catcher Ben Newton. Really appreciate his time. Really appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. You can find us. Also, we can be found on social media, on Twitter and TikTok at TheSportsOBJ, on Instagram at The Sports Objective, and then like and follow us on Facebook, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel. But for Ben Newton, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been watching and listening to The Sports Objective. Have a great one, everyone, and take care, and always go Pirates.
My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down in my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode, from the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close. All out to the last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands up. That a team knows that we got their back.